Amid the roar of the waves and the stillness of dawn, the men wake with a single mission: to face the sea monster with nothing but their hands, their rope, and their unyielding will. These are no ordinary men. They are warriors forged from salt, wind, and generations of tradition. Their prey, the fiercest giants of the deep, bluefin tuna and giant squid. No motors hum to pull the lines. No automated machinery saves their backs. Instead, hundreds of yards of line stretch from their calloused fingers into the abyss. Baited with fish and hope, each line is a question thrown into the ocean, and the answer is always a mystery, sometimes riches, sometimes wounds. Just as the sun breaks through the mist, a line tugs. Suddenly, the boat comes alive. The men brace themselves. The line stretched. A monster was hooked. They pulled hard, not just with their arms but with their backs. Their hips, their entire bodies thrust into the battle. A 1.00-pound tuna fought for its life below. Its tail tore through the water, spraying streams that blinded and burned the skin. But no one flinched, not even when the line cut into a glove or the hook accidentally whipped a man across the face. Finally, the monster rose, a flash of silver and muscle. With a practiced move, one fisherman drove an iron hook into its side. Pulling the creature over the railing, it hit the deck with a thunderous crash. Victory. There was no time to celebrate. While some washed and iced the tuna immediately to preserve its red flesh, others began to cast new lines back into the darkness. And as night fell, a new battle began. A squid weighing more than 40 kilograms had just been pulled up. It was not silent. It screamed with the silence of ink, with jets of black ink spraying straight onto the deck. With the frantic struggle of 8 tentacles covered with razor-sharp suction cups. It was not the first, and certainly not the last. The sea breeze blew through like a cold knife. Their clothes had long been soaked. No one cared about the cold anymore. Their hands, even though cut by ink until bleeding, still kept pulling, kept holding. A giant plastic bucket in the middle of the hold was gradually filling up with squid. The squids were as big as children. Stacked on top of each other, their smooth bodies reflecting the yellow light from the deck. The generator was running steadily. The artificial light dispelled the darkness, but could not dispel the feeling of lurking from below, where the darkness seemed to think. There was a faint scream. A young fisherman had slipped while pulling the line. The squid had just come up and wrapped its last tentacles around his leg. 2 others rushed forward, pulling him up, just as the squid fell to the floor, slithering away like a nightmare. No one screamed, no one panicked. Fear was part of the job here. Like the smell of salt, like the sound of engines, like ink on clothes. And then, after hours of struggling, when the hold was almost full, a signal rang out. Not a whistle, not an order, just the captain's eyes, sunken eyes, more perceptive of the sea than a navigation device. That was when the preparation began. Without waiting for port, the biggest, most beautiful squid would be processed right on the ship, in the middle of the ocean. Under cold metal lights, and with the hands of men who had lived their whole lives with the sea. On a large metal table, the worker held a curved knife, not a machine knife, not a robot. It is a blade that is hand-sharpened every day to cut through the thick, slippery, slimy skin of the giant squid. 1 slice, 2 slices. The head is separated, the meter-long tentacles are coiled like rope. Next to him, another person washes the squid with seawater, not fresh water. The seawater here is salty enough, cold enough to keep the squid flesh from becoming watery or discolored. The body meat, after being cut into blocks, is placed in deep freezers, frozen instantly. Some parts will be kept intact, tentacles, squid eyes, to be sold to high-end sashimi restaurants. The sliced meat will be exported to Korea, Japan, where people are willing to pay 10 times more for natural giant squid from the cold sea. The sound of the knife hitting metal is like a countdown clock. Each slice is decisive. No one talks, no one laughs. They were working as if they were performing a ceremony, a seafarer's ritual to the ocean gods. A few young people who were going to sea for the first time only dared to stand far away and watch. Squid blood, slime, and a fishy smell spread throughout the cabin. But for the men who had lived with the wind and waves for decades, this was the smell of success, the smell of money salty with tears, but also the smell of pride. At the back of the ship, the oldest man in the group was smoking a small cigarette, his hands still shaking from the cold. He looked at the neatly lined up squid, then said only one small sentence. "This year is a good one." Under the starry canopy and electric lights. The ocean transformed. Giant squid, elusive ghosts of the sea, emerged from the depths. Drawn by the light, they emerged, silent, calculating, and dangerous. These creatures were not easily fooled. Their skins flickered with light. They changed color with every movement, adapting, hiding, waiting. The men baited their specialized squid bait, clusters of smooth iron rings instead of sharp hooks. There was no blood, no piercing, only entanglement. When a squid attacked, its tentacles wrapped tightly around the bait. And that was when the fisherman felt it. Not a jerk, but a strange resistance, soft, writhing, alive. He pulled, slowly, steadily, every inch counted. The line was slippery with ink, slippery as oil. The deck grew darker with each pull. One by one, the monsters rose from the depths, hissing ink and flailing their limbs with terrible force. A young man screamed, not in pain, but in shock, as a squid sprayed a jet of black liquid straight into his eyes. Another staggered as a tentacle lashed his back. But they didn't stop, they couldn't stop. Each squid, handled properly, was worth hundreds of dollars. Handled improperly, it was lost forever. As the boat rocked, as waves crashed against its steel frame. The crew moved like shadows, pulling, cleaning, freezing, resetting, and all the while, a sacred rhythm pulsed through their veins. This wasn't just fishing, this was dueling, this was devotion. To them, the sea was more than water. It was a living force, a god to be respected, a beast to be conquered, a companion to be understood. And as dawn broke again, the men stared at the horizon, exhausted but undefeated, a few new scars on their arms. New stories carved into the wooden railings. Below deck, the hold was filled with tuna and squid, each a trophy, each a testimony. As dawn began to creep through the thick fog covering the sea, the ship quietly changed course, heading back towards the mainland. The hold was now a cold treasure, hundreds of giant tuna and squid, frozen and tied tightly in specialized styrofoam boxes, lying still like trophies after a long, silent battle. The engine roared steadily. No one slept. No one rested. They took the opportunity to wipe their knives, wash away the blood on the floor, change the bandages on their hands, and check each cargo box. A few young people sat leaning against the side of the ship, their eyes red from lack of sleep but still wide open, looking towards the horizon, where the blue of the sky began to lighten. It was the quietest moment after a long hunt. No more shouting to pull the rope. No more smell of ink. No more seawater splashing on the face. There was only the wind blowing through the gaps in their shirts, the sound of the ship running rhythmically on each wave, and the distant eyes of those who had been at sea for half their lives. As land slowly emerged from the mist, the first men rose. No one reminded them No one gave orders, but everyone knew what had to be done. A list of the quantities of squid and fish was brought into the cabin. Handwritten notes, ink-stained pens, wet with salt water, all were carefully recorded. It was not just about quantity, it was effort, it was sweat, it was risk and blood. A first-class tuna, 2 giant squid with tentacles still attached, a barrel full of processed squid. Each fish, each kilogram, each type, all were recorded without a single mistake. The harbor welcomed them with a familiar noise. The sound of ships' horns. The sound of trucks. The sound of people shouting to each other amid the strong smell of salt and fresh fish. But no one complained, because this was the place where danger and value were exchanged. When the ship docked, the stevedores rushed onto the deck. Dozens of crates were carefully unloaded. Some will be sent to the export cold storage area, others to wholesale markets, and the rest will be bought by high-end restaurants right at the dock. Buyers step up and inspect